we're going to talk about the top 3 tips to help heal your postpartum incontinence. Incontinence after babies is really, really common. So many people experience it, but it is not normal and it doesn't have to be your reality. So you're going to use these top 3 strategies in order to heal your incontinence, and we're going to dive into those in this video. Watch the entirety of this video because it's really important that you understand why incontinence happens postpartum, and that will help you understand what you're doing in order to fix it. If you understand the reason why it's happening, then the strategies become very clear and super easy to integrate into your daily life. So I'm so excited you're here. This is the best thing you can do for yourself after having a baby. Heal your incontinence so you're not the mom leaking at the exercise class or wearing pads as you go through menopause that turn into diapers and Depends. We don't want you there. That's why I'm giving you these 3 strategies to heal your postpartum incontinence so you don't have to be and live that life. Because who wants to worry about smelling like pee and leaking and bringing a change of clothes? No one. You have kids to worry about that for. You don't need to do it for yourself. So join me and we're going to dive into this. Please like and subscribe and share this to all your mom friends because we want to get the word out there that they don't have to be peeing their pants after they have babies. It is very common and not normal at all. So let's help you heal right away. Okay. For you to understand exactly what has happened after having a baby, I have to explain a few things. You grow a baby for 9 months. You already know that. You've been there, done that, got the check mark and the baby. So here we are dealing with the aftermath. The uterus expands and sits on top of the bladder. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here's my drawing. If this is the uterus, this is the bladder. All right? And it turns into the urethra. All right, the uterus goes and becomes the vagina. Well, this uterus is putting downward pressure onto the bladder here. And so it's really important that you understand that the bigger the uterus gets, the more pressure is put down on the bladder. What happens with that pressure is that the bladder itself, and I should put this bladder a little closer to the vaginal canal, the bladder can descend into this wall, creating a pelvic organ descent, or what people will call a pelvic organ prolapse, also known as a cystocele, when it's your bladder coming into the vagina here. That prolapse is what we call it, can create incontinence. Now, everyone that's had a baby has had the uterus living on their bladder for 9 to 10 months. And so everybody's going to experience some degree of this pressure and force down on the bladder. Okay, now I want you to see where the pelvic floor is located. So the pelvic floor then becomes this muscle here, and it's a bowl shape, all right? And when a baby comes through the vaginal canal, the pelvic floor has to open and stretch. When the pelvic floor stretches, there can be micro tears in the muscle. So if a healthy muscle relaxes and contracts, when we overstretch a muscle, and if it's not used to being overstretched to that degree, we get these little things in the muscle called micro tears, which cause scar tissue as they start to scar down. When that happens, that decreases the amount that the muscle can stretch again and that the muscle can contract, because when we have micro tears, it freezes the muscles and prevents that movement. And so we want to help improve that movement so you have a functional, healthy pelvic floor. Now, if you were just going to go do Kegels in order to help heal your incontinence, it's not going to work because you don't have the movement in order to get a powerful Kegel. Okay, so that would be a muscle contraction. And so we have to heal the pelvic floor and teach it to expand past that scar tissue in order to get it the most power to stop the incontinence. I'll show you how to do that here. I'm just explaining this right now. So you have a full understanding of why we need to implement these strategies that I'm going to teach you at the end of this video here. So the next thing is, as the baby comes through the canal, You can also get tearing in the perineum itself down here. So this is just more of the superficial muscles of the pelvic floor, but also skin and fascia that can again prevent the ability of the pelvic floor and the whole perineum to fully relax and fully contract. So this is the understanding that I need you to have, how the body changes, and now we're going to progress into the top 3 strategies in order to help curb the incontinence. This is why the incontinence happens. Now let's move into the strategies to fix that incontinence. Okay, if this is comfortable for your postpartum body, you can join me by sitting in a cross-legged position. You can keep your hands on your knees, or you can pull them up into a meditative positioning. I put my hips up on 2 pillows. This allows me to keep my spine nice and straight and tall. If you have flexibility, you might not need that, but I want you to make sure that you're not curling back and you're not stressing your body out in order to maintain this nice neutral alignment posture. Okay, from this position, what we're going to do is we're going to go into a breath meditation or a breath work exercise. The reason that we're going to do breathing as our top strategy, as one of our top strategies, is because when we breathe, the air in our lungs actually goes all the way down to the pelvic floor and stretches those pelvic floor muscles. Now, it's not going to like stretch out and make you weak. It actually just brings that range of motion and can help break up some of that scar tissue pattern. So you're using your breath to help open up and change that scar tissue pattern, so then you get the strength you need in these muscles in order to stop the peeing. So if you were coughing, if you're able to fully elongate these muscles, when you go to cough, you can just naturally contract. But if your muscles are living in this contracted state, then when you go to cough, they're already contracted. They can't contract anymore. So the pee is just going to sneak on through. So we have to get you to elongate these muscles and start to heal some of that scar tissue. And we're doing that in this seated position to also help open up the hips and just spread the sit bones a little bit, stretching out the pelvic floor. So if you're in this position, you can do a hand on the chest or keep your hands here. I also like to do a hand on the belly because you're teaching the air to go into the belly. So you're going to take a deep breath here, go deep breath into belly, allowing the belly to open and relax. Exhale, belly recoils. When you inhale next, I want you to think about the pelvic floor opening, feeling an opening deep through your growing area. You're going to take a nice deep breath in and exhale. I want you to feel the opening all the way deep. Do this breathing for 5 minutes a day, especially in the early phases of healing after baby. But really, this breathing is great for so many other reasons. So stick with it and keep it as part of your programming, especially as you start to get more into a strength aspect of your programming. Keep the breathing to keep the range of motion of your pelvic floor. This is an absolutely essential tip to healing incontinence, but it sounds scary because incontinence, you think, oh, I'm weak, I need to contract. I'm telling you, every postpartum pelvic floor I've ever checked, unless there is a significant nerve injury, is tension, is tight, is wrapped around scar tissue, and isn't elongating enough in order to get that contraction. That just happens naturally, by the way. You don't even have to think about it. And so this tip of breathing and opening the pelvic floor is your most important tip for allowing you to have bladder control postpartum. Okay, next, I want to talk about the bladder itself. We want the bladder to be hydrated. Healthy, hydrated bladders don't spasm and contract when they're not needing to go pee. So if you're getting urgency or you're going to the bathroom more than every 3 to 4 hours, then we need to change the pattern of your bladder. Your bladder should be able to hold a good amount of urine for 3 to 4 hours before you have to void. So how do we do that? We add water. It sounds counterproductive, But the more that we hydrate the bladder, the less it's going to spasm down, creating some incontinence or creating too many urges to go pee when you don't actually have to go pee. So one thing you need to do is drink plenty of fluids. And this holds true just for healing the body postpartum. And then, of course, if you're lactating and feeding a baby, you want to make sure that you have this hydrated bladder, because the hydrated, healthy bladders are the happy bladders that can hold urine longer. So how much water? Well, that's really up to your body, and you have to figure out a good ratio. Of course, you want to get at least 64 ounces a day. Some people might need double that or even a little bit more. Some people need some electrolytes in that water in order to drink that much water, but you're going to have to figure that out for your own body. What I am telling you is that the bladder loves water. So a lot of times people tell me, well, I drink a gallon a day, that's why I'm incontinent, or I can't hold it. No. Independent of how much water you drink, I want that bladder to be able to hold for 3 to 4 hours. So I hope that helps you, and start hydrating, and that will start to heal your bladder capacity and decrease the spasms at which the bladder is experiencing. That is tip number 2. Let me know how that goes. I would love for you to drop it in the comments and let me know if that helps you, and if you notice that increasing your water intake, how much that can curb the incontinence. And I know it's scary to do, but just give it a shot and try it for the first day when you're like at home the whole day, so you can test it. You can test this theory, and you won't have to be scared about leaking in public. And so yes, try it at home first, and then you'll start to gain confidence of how well it works to be able to try out in the world, or when you go to your next play date or peps group or whatever that is in your area. All right, enjoy that one. You made it to our third and final tip. Congratulations. This is the most important tip, so stay tuned for the entirety of it, and I want you to understand the explanation behind it. So as the pelvic floor is tight postpartum and tends to have that scar tissue, in order to help regain the normal tone, which you're going to do with breathing, I also need you to strengthen your glutes. The glutes, so the buttocks, they get weak during pregnancy. A lot of that is because we lose hip extension, so our legs don't come fully behind our bodies, and we have to retrain that. But starting to retrain your glute is going to help you not only build a natural Brazilian butt lift, but it's gonna help you start to unload your pelvic floor. The stronger the glutes are, the less tension and heavy lifting the pelvic floor has to do. So we want to strengthen the glutes to help protect the pelvic floor and the pelvic organs. We need the pelvic organs to go back up into their places. I told you they get a little heavy. There can be pelvic organ descent with the baby on top of the uterus. Pushing a baby out can also increase that. And so this tip and this exercise is going to help you not only strengthen your glutes, it's also going to help wiggle the bladder back into its place. So join me here on the floor for this exercise. Okay, we are going into a bridge position. We are going to use our glutes to lift us up to the sky, and as we do that, what happens here is my glutes engage, and my bladder, which sits right here, is soaking back up into my body. So I can actually take my hands right above my pubic bone and do a little lift of my bladder to help pull it back into its place, and then come back down. And then you can just do, 10 to 20 repetitions, squeezing your glutes, pushing through the entirety of the foot, including the big toe, not just the heels, and come back down and lift up and come back down, feeling the glutes, getting a great connection here. This should not hurt your back. A good tip for unloading the back is pushing the knees away from the body at a 45-degree angle. Again, this is what it looks like. It's hip extension, hip flexion, hip extension, hip flexion, hip extension, hip flexion. It's not tilting your pelvis like this, okay? We want to keep the pelvis nice and stable. We're just moving at the hip joint itself. When we learn to move just at the hip joint, we're going to grow our glutes nicer, and we're not going to strain our pelvic joints. So we're going to actually get more strength to those glutes, being able to really truly develop those muscles. therefore unloading the pelvic floor. So this is going to be a super important tip for you as you begin your postpartum journey, or wherever you are at on your postpartum journey, because not only is this exercise helping the bladder go back into its place, but it's helping you start to rebuild your glutes in order to help support your pelvic floor, your pelvic organs, and all of your joints. So I wish you the best postpartum experience. Please drop me a note. I will respond to your comments, and I hope you took a lot from this video. I wish you the best postpartum healing experience ever. I'm Dr. Allison Felt. Enjoy your day.